By all accounts, at the age of 29, I was massively successful. Multi-million dollar agency. We're in the top 1% of all agencies on the planet. We're working with these massive companies. Um, I'm 29 years old. I'm the CEO of a rapidly growing firm. We're literally hiring new people every month. Um, and I go to my doctor and they do a stress test. And I thought, hey, I'm going to be 30 next year. I should probably think about this. And actually, my wife encouraged me a lot, to be honest. My wife was like, you need to go. So I go and they do this test and I come back, a week later or whatever. They said, so we've tested 4,500 people. You're the most stressed out person we've ever tested. If you don't change your habits, your behavior, you're not going to see 40.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people that are watching us from around the world, they say, okay, we know where Canada is, in British Columbia, West Coast, right? Right. And then there is a big city called Vancouver. And where are you, John? We are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers. And it's a city called Prince George. About 82,000 people, lots of forest all around us, and lots of other friends like black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, foxes, wolves, you name it. We have them all. We call it paradise. Today we have a very interesting guest. His name is Dave Valentine, and Dave has a very, very interesting record of having owned 10 businesses that have collectively generated more than $1 billion of more than 1,200 clients, including Fortune 500 companies like Target, Time Magazine, and American Express. Dave brings a wealth of experience to the table. And the other interesting part is that at 29, a stark warning from his doctor became Dave's wake-up call. We'll find out about what it was and why and how it changed him. Dave, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So give us a bit of your background. Where were you born? Where did you get your training? What's your education background? And then obviously you're an entrepreneur extraordinaire because at a very, very young age you were involved in already 10 companies and did very, very well in the process. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I was born in a suburb of North Dallas called Plano, Texas,
Okay.
and to a teenage mother. And my parents miraculously got married and are still together so many
Oh,
years
wow.
later, which is remarkable. Yeah. Um, I grew up in a military household. So my dad was a pilot in the Air Force, and we moved around constantly. So by the time I graduated high school at 18, we had lived in 15 different houses in 13 different cities all across the United States. So I got to see a diversity of people, places, and it really shaped my ability to understand the psyche behind different people's drives and motivations for the most part. When I was a young kid, I started my entrepreneurial journey then. So when I was 10 years old, I started selling candy, pencils, pens, erasers, paper out of my backpack to classmates that didn't have it. And sometimes I'd give it to them on a loan. And then
With
when I was,
interest.
yeah, that's right. And then when I was in my early teenage years, I started a lawn care company, just mowing uh, grass and weed eating and whatever for people around the neighborhood. So it's kind of always been in my blood. My dad was an entrepreneur as well before he joined the military, and he did quite well for himself. And so it's pretty natural for me just to kind of make that leap. When I decided to go to school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, honestly. So I was kind of, going through school, trying to figure it out. Didn't really declare a major until the end of my sophomore year. Hilariously, I studied philosophy, so I have a I have a degree in philosophy, which I always like to say, John, makes me a really qualified bartender.
I like
so
that.
yeah, so that's kind of my background
So, and then after that, you got involved in businesses other than, obviously, you were born entrepreneurial with all the things that you did. And that's what I say a lot of times. Entrepreneurs are born and already have that natural instinct for doing things in some form or fashion that leads them then to the next thing. In your case, how did it put you into business, and what type of business in particular? Advertisement, ad agencies, or what was it?
there. Yeah, so when I was 18, I was still in high school. I took an internship where I was doing marketing. It was back in the days of MySpace and Friendster, which my younger staff have never heard of at this point. And I was building websites and I was shooting videos for like promoting events for the organization that I was working with, and I was really cutting my teeth there. And so for me, going into marketing and advertising just was a natural fit. I started running, AdWords when it was in its infancy. I also used to use Twitter when you had to text in your tweets, or you had to hop on a desktop and type them in. I've told people that they're like, I never knew you had to text in your tweets. Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a different time, and it was really at the the vanguard of the internet age, and how we're using it for
Early
marketing in
mid
particular.
80s, Dave. When was it?
Yeah, I mean it was the early 2000s. So
Yeah,
it was yeah, it was a fun time, and so I kind of tried to figure out, what is the next step? How do I do this? What's up?
yeah.
2008 crisis happened, so that was fun. And ultimately, I landed in a marketing department at a major pharmaceutical company in the U.S. Just trying to figure out what to do, and the chief marketing officer really didn't have any digital background. He was an older gentleman and didn't know anything about it. But we had digital agencies. We had 4 digital agencies that were working with us, and he eventually just looked at me and said, "Hey, Dave, you seem like a bright young man. Why don't you work with these agencies?" And so as
Yeah.
I started to work with them, I realized that they had no clue what they were doing. They couldn't give me good reporting. These are some huge agencies, by the way. They couldn't give me good reporting. They couldn't tell me the strategy in a cogent way. It was like, well, we're trying to do this, 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 and this. And it was like, well, that doesn't line up. And so as I kind of dove deeper into it, I just started to realize like there's actually an opportunity for me to create a better agency, one that is led with transparency, authenticity, and actually gets results for clients in a meaningful way. And so I started my first agency when I was 25, and really started getting that going. And it was a digital advertising agency. We specialized in Facebook and Instagram ads, and it was the wild west of that time period. And so we could target people in really crazy, fun ways that really got great results. Then we paired it with fun creative. So yeah, it was an incredible kind of opportunity just for me to jump in and be like, hey, I think we can go do this.
It was also an interesting time because it was in the top of the recession that really already started somewhat in the
Yeah.
late 2006, 7, 8, and then from there on in, it really, really got difficult. A lot of companies got into trouble, and at the same time, what that does, it kind of weeds out the weak ones, and it means that we have to change direction one way or the other if we want to survive. And so obviously you were part of that or worked with companies that wanted to be part of it. So in marketing, advertising changed in a way In particular, social media became more proactive and more involved. So it was kind of a whole new direction for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging. Everybody's trying to figure out how to find their audience, how to get them to engage. I mean, I think that there's because we're so far removed from it now, 17 years ago. Good grief. Um, we forget that we call it the Great Recession. It was really a depression. I mean, we put a marketing spin on it. I mean, it was really, really horrendous around the globe, and people just didn't have money. And so it was really interesting to be working with brands that were trying to be very scrappy with every dollar. So like large Fortune 500, FTSE 100 brands that we were working with, they were being scrappy with their dollars. They didn't want to spend money unless it was going to have a return. So they started to think like a small business in many regards. And what that actually did for my agency, at least, was we stood out because a lot of big companies were like, well, we need somebody that's going to treat us like the biggest client that they've got and make sure that we're really making money from every dollar that we spend. And so we had some great clients that we picked up just because they looked at us and they're like, you guys are not this international size agency. You're an agency that's growing, and we're interested in working with you because you've got the insights that we need in the new digital landscape to really help us get where we need to go.
Yeah, and now you're talking about companies like Target, Time Magazine, American Express, and the likes of that group, highly, highly well known, solid companies, but all of a sudden getting into a period that we called recession slash approaching depression. So this is serious stuff that most people had not seen before and likely would never see again, they thought, but now we are approaching the same again, a period of uh, uh, challenges, in particular as it affects global economy, and again, a
Yeah.
period of change where we are today. So tell us more about you, though, in terms of so you did that. You were still in your early 20s, approaching mid 20s. You did well. You worked with these big companies. Late 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, we're going to now forward. And all of a sudden, at 29, you talk to your doc, and he said,
Yeah.
"Hey, Dave, you got a major problem here unless you do what?"
Yeah. So by all accounts, at the age of 29, I was massively successful. Multi-million dollar agency. We're in the top 1% of all agencies on the planet. We're working with these massive companies. Um, I'm 29 years old. I'm the CEO of a rapidly growing firm. We're literally hiring new people every month. Um, and I go to my doctor and they do a stress test. And I thought, hey, I'm going to be 30 next year. I should probably think about this. And actually, my wife encouraged me a lot, to be honest. My wife was like, you need to go. So I go and they do this test and I come back, a week later or whatever. They said, so we've tested 4,500 people. You're the most stressed out person we've ever tested. If you don't change your habits, your behavior, you're not going to see 40. Uh,
Whoa.
and what I started to realize, John, was what I was doing to make the business go was I was a person that was really, I struggled with processes and procedures, specifically on me. So I was just a wild man all over the place all the time. It was part of the reason why we were successful. It was also the reason why we weren't going to go any further in growth unless I made a change. And so what I started to realize was, I would basically wake up in the morning, I would drink coffee until I stopped sometime in the afternoon, and then I'd start drinking alcohol later in the afternoon to calm myself down from all the caffeine.
Ooh.
As I reflected back after I had this interaction with my doctor, I realized that there were days that I just didn't have a single glass of water. I know that that sounds insane, but it was true. I was drinking soda, I was drinking coffee, I was drinking beer, and it was not good, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so I had also stopped working out. It was a thing that I was a athlete in high school and into college. I played soccer. I was a weightlifter. I was in really, really good shape, and I was not anymore. And so I had to look myself in the mirror and say, okay, we need to get some small wins out of the gate. So I made two rules for myself to get started. Number one was I had to drink just one glass of water a day. Basic, easy. And the second one was I needed to go for a walk for at least 10 minutes outside. That sounds really low bar, but that's how much I needed my life to change. And so, of course, I would drink a glass of water. Sometimes I'd have four, five, six, just because I was aware of it now, right? I'd forgotten. And so I was like, okay, I need to drink more water. But the other thing that I did too was I didn't just walk for 10 minutes. Usually I'd walk for an hour. I'd walk for, 90 minutes. Sometimes I'd go lift. I started to put new habits back in my life. I also started to meditate. And that was something that I hadn't done in quite some time. And so these new habits started to stack up. And as a result, the business started to do even better because I was taking care of myself. And I think that one of the things that I've just seen on repeat with entrepreneurs is that it's really easy to accept hustle culture, where it's like you just got to grind and you got to work harder. And I did all that to a degree that's inappropriate and unhealthy. And I honestly advocate against that now. I'm like, no, you actually don't need to grind as much. You need to think through how to work this a lot smarter. And so the grind is in your mind, and it's good to rest, and it's helpful to take naps, and it's even beneficial to your productivity. And so yeah, it's that was a pretty wild time.
So, how critical was your wife in the process? Because all of a sudden she was used to you being the one person that totally focused
Yeah.
on business, on nothing else other than started gradually depleting in terms of physical health, stress, all the things that are related to it that you may know of, but others can see, as your dog did, I'm sure your wife did as well. So, but C must have been an important part here.
Yeah, she was incredible. Um, she was incredible. I mean, she actively advocated for my wellness. She actively advocated for me to find balance, and she tried to do everything within her power to make that happen as well. And so, she would just make sure that I was aware of things like, hey, you haven't had any water in a while. When I came home from the office or whatnot, she would say, hey, how was your day? What is going on? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Because a lot of the stress, the anxiety was internal. It's really interesting, John. For me, I felt I knew that we were doing well, and I always felt internally like it wasn't enough. And so one of the things that I often tell new entrepreneurs or people that are thinking about their entrepreneurial journey, I tell them often, I say, look, it's the best, most potent form of therapy you will ever experience. And it's so tough. And so I really believe that. It's been my experience. And yeah, my wife was an incredible piece of the puzzle to helping me heal myself and be able to move forward.
So that puts you here today. So, what are you doing now, both
Yeah.
physically, mentally, and business wise? Because obviously, already you have on the foundation a lot of experience that brought you to the highest levels. And so then you had to reconcile it to the extent of mixing personal well-being, which is critical in terms of diet, health, fitness, and at the end of the day, for me, I'm a little bit older than you are. I'm nearly 85. I will be 85 in about 3-4 months. So what I say, age is just a number. It's quality of life that is important. I'm also an author. I'm working now on my 6th book. This is the last one that I did, or one of the last ones, Living Young, Dying Old. It's all a picture of me, actually. It's all about fitness, well-being. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. But it took me a while to get there. But it's all about, first and foremost, well-being, mentally, physically, sleep, very important, vitamin D important, exercise, both, heavy duty, heavy exercise, if you wish, and walking, cardiovascular fitness, very, very important. And then, the other one obviously is diet. Is very, very important. Being aware what you put in your body and combining all of that.
Yeah. So, I love that you're doing this, John. You're a living testament to your own books, and I love that reflection. It's so beautiful. It's one of the reasons why I was so excited to chat with you today. I see the alignment in you, and I'm like, yeah, I love what you're up to, man. Yeah, for me, what I'm up to, in 2023, I had a portfolio of firms. I had 8 different firms. I sold all but one of them, which was my consulting firm. I did that early in 23, and then I took the rest of 2023 off. I just kind of, I live in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. now, on a river in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. That's actually where I'm coming to you from right now. And I walked in the garden. I worked out.
Is it in
I
Washington State someplace, or where
it
is it?
it is in Washington State. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Okay.
just south of you.
Yeah, yeah. In
and
Seattle?
and Yeah, a little bit further south, but yeah, I'm in the Cascades, and
Yeah, yeah. I like it.
and yeah, it's beautiful.
It's paradise.
Oh yeah, it's incredible, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, so I took some time off. I spent time with my kids. They're young, and I've got 3 of them, and then spent some time with my wife. And then in 24, I started consulting with some companies in a more robust way. And a lot of the things that I do, John, is go to market strategies. Like, how do you take this idea, whether it's a SaaS product or an agency or a physical product, and how do you move it through to take it to market and then sell it so that you have a foundation to springboard off of? And so that's what I really started helping people do. And I came across in July of last year, I started working with an agency called Finch, and they've been around since 2008. They've had some changes in ownership and leadership, and they needed my strategies. And so we started working together. I still had other clients, and then it became really apparent that they needed a new leader. So in December of last year, I bought in as a partner, and then I became the CEO. And so Finch is a performance marketing agency with a global footprint. We have people in Australia, the Philippines, all over Europe. We have a big office in Dublin. And then we have people in the US as well. And we're expanding our footprint for employees. So we serve brands globally. As
How
I
do
like
you
to say,
how do
20
you spell it? F starting with an
Finch,
Oh yeah, okay.
Finch,
Bench.
just
Okay.
like the bird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I brought in some people that I've worked with before. And so we've got a great team. We serve multi-billion-dollar brands and startups. And we run their digital ads, we do their SEO, and we now do their ad creative as well. And so it's really going back to my roots, but it's going back to my roots in a different way, John. It feels like this is what I am supposed to be doing right now, and I love every second of it. And my health is better than it's ever been.
So you got it in balance, and that is the critical part, right? The danger
Yeah.
always is, I do the same, is that I was born in 1940 in northeastern Holland, within 10, 15 minutes from the German border. lived there during the Second World War. My mom and dad, they were married in 1938. They were in love. My dad had a job working in a lumber company, and so fairly quickly they had two children, a boy and a girl. And then in early 1940, my mom was pregnant with me, and then all of a sudden, a dictator called Adolf Hitler decided that Poland at least should be part of Germany. And as they did that, he then put his eye on Western Europe, and my dad was called into the Dutch army in April of 1940. And for 5 years, they would not see him anymore or hear from him. He was caught in Rotterdam before the bombing, and they didn't know if he lived or died for 5 years. And so my mom was on her own with three kids. We saw far too much that we should not have seen, and and it was tough. And in 1944, in particular, hunger. They cut off all the food supply, and even now still, I can still feel the hunger of 1944. The winter of 44-45 was the coldest on record. And we as kids in 1944, my brother, my sister, myself, every morning we would go with gunny sacks into the railroad yard, pick up anything edible and burnable. The reason that we did as kids, because they wouldn't shoot us, they boot us one, but we'd be back the following day. But so we saw far too much, and then we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945, and again, it made such an impression on me that the Canadians liberating us and the Allied forces, when they landed in Normandy, the US, the Canadians, and the UK in particular, and made their way into freeing Europe. The Canadians went north to France, Belgium, the west side of Holland, and then where we lived in the north, they pushed the Germans back to Germany, but it got pretty tough where we were. And so PTSD is still very much part of me, the inner child, and all of those things. But it impressed me so much by the Canadians liberating us that I knew that when I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And so I tried to go when I was 17, and then my parents wouldn't let me, too young. And then I won when I was 24. And I wanted to start with nothing, and with a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and the dream of building a lumber mill in Western Canada, in British Columbia. And so when I arrived in Vancouver, I couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job, and went to the immigration department and told them. There was fortunately a German fellow. I could speak some German, and I told them what I wanted to do. I want to build a lumber mill, and they said, go to Prince George. That's 500 miles, 800 kilometers, as I said earlier, away from Vancouver. With the bus, 13 hours. I can still see the bus here where it landed, or the Greyhound station here. And I came off the bus. I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted very little money. I came off the bus and I counted my money, and I had exactly $25.47. But what I did have is strong attitude. I always had, even as you did, I was already entrepreneurial when I was a little kid, selling bottles, paper, steel, or whatever I could find to do, hustling, delivering papers, getting money for that, and always already entrepreneurial. The other part that I had is passion. That whatever I do, I give it 125%, and then the other one is work ethic. I work harder than anybody, even still now at nearly 85. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so, and that's what I do. And yes, I did build a lumber mill and a number of other companies, but it's not about that really. It kind of changed my life, and it's being entrepreneurial and working hard. It's And as you indicated, I do a lot of business in the United States as well, and I fly a lot, commercially as well. I'm also a pilot, but commercially, as I fly, I always sit by the window. And especially when I go fly through Canada and especially the west of the United States, I look out of the window and say, it's paradise. It's paradise. We are so fortunate. And a lot of people these days, they don't realize necessarily that war is not good. War is bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have the impression, respectfully, that they think after the war is over, everything goes back to normal. Well, that doesn't. It may
Right.
take generations, in fact. And and I believe we are so fortunate here in North America that, we have democratic rule, and that's the foundation, not only for North America, but for the world, the benefit of democratic rule. And I hope we will always preserve that.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
it's the land of opportunity.
It is. Yep. 100%.
So the other part then that has been so important to me as it is to you, the other thing that comes to mind when I interact with you and I read your bio and looking in particular at marketing and advertisement, you must be a good communicator. And what I say a lot of times is that communication skills are critical to success. And in fact, I'm writing a book about it. It's right here, that's coming out in July. Billionaire is all about communication skills. And the people that have been very successful and maybe to the level of becoming billionaires have one thing in common. They are very good communicators. And I believe it's one of the critical parts, not well taught necessarily in our educational systems in North America or especially in Canada. I believe so in the United States and in Europe. Probably not enough being put into the education system in terms of developing communication skills.
I so agree, John. And it's one of the things. It's really interesting that you bring this up because it's one of the things that I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like, hey, if you can speak, if you can listen, if you can write, if you can understand someone else's writing, you are head and shoulders above anyone. I tell them this sincerely. I go, you can do anything because no matter what your vocation is, no matter what you choose to give your life energy to, you're going to have to communicate with other people, whether that's listening and understanding information or communicating information. You're going to have to communicate well. And if you can do it at a very high level, where you understand the nuances of body language and tone, and you'll start to be able to be, to your point, a master communicator that actually changes the trajectory of your life. I know that communication for me, my wife always tells me, she's like, you're a better communicator than I am by a long shot, which is not typical for wives to say their husbands, I don't think. Um, but I but I think that it's one of those things, John, where to your point, I've worked at it. I've really made it a key piece of what I'm up to, and I'm still a student of it. I'm always trying to find new ways to communicate more effectively. I don't want to be stagnant in my development there, and so it's a challenge that's worth accepting to learn how to communicate well. I'm so excited for your book. That's amazing because I think that most people don't understand, to your point, billionaires, millionaires, master communicators. And it's a skill that most people never develop.
Exactly. And so the other part of that is part of your foundation is I believe you studied psychology. Did you?
I studied philosophy.
Oh,
I
philosophy.
did have some psychology. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but again, your studies and your background was very, very important to it. Even when you started young as an entrepreneur, to have that confidence to knock on doors and do, in a small way, start your initial thought of entrepreneurship and develop it from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I make the joke about my philosophy degree that, it makes me a really good bartender. I think that what it actually does, John, is it allows me to understand what motivates humans, right? Like
Right.
a lot of philosophy is epistemology, which is the study of how we understand knowledge or how we gain knowledge. And
Right.
then the second one is what are people's drives and motivations? And so um, I use philosophy daily in my work. And that
Exactly.
sounds so strange, but it's sincere. I know that there's been a rise in people's appreciation for Stoic philosophy past 5, 10 years, and I think it's brilliant. I love it. I have also found that philosophy helps me overcome a lot of, to your point, knocking on doors, anxiety. Well, if I understand philosophy well, which there's debates about that, then it's one of those things where you go, the fear comes from a primal fear of being ostracized from the tribe. When we were in tribal societies, you didn't get out of line because that would mean you are excluded. You're on your own. And that's dangerous. That
Exactly.
means death, likely, right? To
Exactly.
understand that that fear is in my DNA, it's in my bones, and it's not true right now.
Right.
That I'm just knocking on someone's door and asking, do they need any help? And if they don't need any help, then great. And if they do need some help, let me help you. And so I think that there's a way that we operate where we can say, well, I don't have the right degree, I don't have the right credentials. That's never the case. Take what you've got. One of the things that I love about your story, John, is that you picked up in all of your traumatic experiences. You picked up ways to go and move through the world, to go figure it out. You had to survive. And I don't have that traumatic experience. I have my own traumatic experiences from childhood and even adulthood that I now use to help me get what I want and to help others in a meaningful way. And so, yeah, I think that it's all part of the game.
And it brings you also to the point what you were indicating is that at 29 you had to redirect because it was starting to adversely affect your health and fitness and potentially relationships, that you were not going in the right direction, and to find then ways of finding that balance that then allowed you to dispose of some of your companies and still had one. And then, but the other part about it, I believe, Dave, is, and that's what I feel about myself, although there were lots of challenges along the way, it laid the foundation of experiences that I could never replace by, no matter what I did, no matter what kind of schooling I would have. My experience were unique to me and gave me the ability to do what I do now, of being interactive, having, a number of companies and all of those kind of things. But it is the experience that were challenging along the way, that were unique, have been benefiting me, and they have obviously done the same for you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think when I talk to business owners, when I talk to people that are in executive positions in big companies, even too, there's there's a sense sometimes where they are still living out the trauma of their youth, and youth in quotes, right? The youth can be when you're 65. They're still living out some trauma, and they haven't recognized that it's actually a gift and not a curse.
Exactly.
And I love, I'm sure that you're familiar with Viktor Frankl's work, and I find his work absolutely instrumental in navigating through life. And I just really encourage people that are watching, listening, whatever, um, find a good therapist. And also engage with your wounds in a way that's meaningful. You don't understand that the joy, the happiness, the money, the freedom is actually on the other side, and it's worth examining yourself on a regular basis.
So the other part that's the is one of the questions that comes to mind is that digital ads more and more common these days, but not always working well. Why is that?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. Okay, so there was a study done between Harvard and Oxford back in 2004. And the study was, how many times does a person need to see your ad for them to remember your name and remember what you do? Okay. So in 2004, it was 4 times. They ran this experiment again in 2018. The number had grown to 19 times. 19 times for someone to remember your name and remember what you do. What's changed, John? A lot of things have changed, but some of the things that have changed are, it's more challenging to target people well because of privacy laws. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a beneficial thing for everybody. Um, and there are also new issues like you have to show up more often. People don't trust you anymore. They just don't trust anyone because there's so many people out there that will sell you something that is just garbage.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons why I have my own podcast, I love being on your a guest on podcasts like yours, is that it does create an opportunity for people to know you and build trust with you, because especially the way that you run your interviews right now, John, like, you're very engaging, it's very casual. I feel like I'm sitting in the room with you. I
Yeah.
wish I was, frankly, we'd have fun. But the feeling of getting to know a person really leads to, yeah, I want to buy your books, I want to engage with the things you're up to with your business. And so to us, whenever we're running ads now in the digital space, we're asking ourselves a lot of questions. One of the questions we ask are, what are the reasons why people wouldn't buy this? We mostly work with e-commerce brands, right, that are selling things online. Why would people not buy this? What would be the reason why people wouldn't trust us? What would be the thing that would help them feel secure as they make a transaction? What are the ways that we could communicate that would actually demonstrate the efficacy of the product so that people go, oh, I need that result? And so the things that we're doing with digital ads too to stay ahead of the curve, we've started to use technology in a new way. So cookies are going away. Right now, all of our conversion tracking happens through cookies online. I'm sure that everyone that's engaging with the content has seen that before, where it's like, hey, do you allow the cookies from this site to track you? Da, 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 da.
So what
Basically,
does
what
that
that's doing.
mean? What does that mean, Dave, for the people that are watching us? They hear the term cookies, but don't necessarily know what it refers to.
So essentially, it's a small piece of code that follows your browsing history,
Okay.
and it tracks where you go, what sites you go to, and it then gives information back to different platforms. So, for instance, if you do a Google search and you click on something, Google is watching you the whole time. So they know where you're going, they know the sites that you're going to, and they know if you make a purchase from a website, and they know how much that purchase was for. They even know the products that you bought. So the same happens for every big technology company. The reason why that's going away is due to privacy. Right now, 40% of the people that are watching this have opted out of cookies completely already anyway because of privacy concerns. And what we're going to is what's called multi-touch attribution and a triple M attribution. So what that those two things are different are, it's actually associated with your IP address instead of a cookie, and it's got anonymized data. So it's not allowing us to see, oh, they went here, 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 here. It's a lot different. So it's better for the users. But it's also better for marketers as well. We can now start to plot how they're just engaging with your brand. So in multi-touch attribution, we can say, hey, look, they did a Google search. They clicked on the organic link in the search. Then they followed us on Instagram 2 weeks later. Then they engaged with our content on Instagram for 6 weeks. And we started retargeting them with an ad on Instagram. They clicked on that and they went and purchased. We're able to see a full perspective of the timeline with MTA. And then with Triple M, we're actually able to look back at historical data for the past 3 years, project what's going to happen for the next 12 months, and then it will actually give us in real time adjustments that we should make, how much we should be spending on every digital ad platform that day, and it will help us adjust in real time. And so these two new pieces of technology are really helping our clients see their best results ever because we're using a different model that's attributing revenue and also helping us project how much they should be spending to hit their goals moving forward.
Interesting, and a lot of thought has gone into that. So one of the things that comes to mind with me in a simple form as a consumer sitting here, I watch television, US stations, or I do a lot of watching CNN, ABC, and some of the other ones, including BBC, the global networks, but in particular, talking about US stations, I see such an abundance of advertisement, and that with advertising, where an ad would be 1-2 minutes long way back then, it's now more or less like 30 seconds or 15 seconds over and over and over and over again, where that's the revenue source primarily for the station, whoever they may be, maybe ABC, CNN, whatever, but it is so overwhelming with advertisement. And then the other part takes me away from watching television the way I've always done before, is that television has become political, leaning too far in a particular direction. Combine that with advertisement makes me go elsewhere. And I believe that we fit into that, as I see it, that the new media is podcasting on a global level, that no different than as you and me are sitting here, both being very active podcasters, that I already know that I'm nearly at 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Should be in the next month or two. I'm close to 900,000 right now. And then at the same time, I know that our podcasting globally is probably somewhere in the area of 2 million, 2.5 million. Wow. Immensely powerful. And it's only on its infancy as we speak. So I'm kind of thinking, and I like your professional comments about that, that's why I'm running it by you, is saying in the next 2 to 3 months, I'm going to put together a platform.
Yeah, I recommend it. I think that one of the things that we're up to right now at the agency, we've started our own podcast channel, and it's called Vox and Coin. We have 3 different styles of podcasting right now, but we really see it as being an entire company on its own, John, to your point. And the reason for that, and one of the reasons why we're excited to do it as well, is we're really trying to say, hey, we want to help clients do this well. Because we do believe that content, in particular video podcasting, is where it's at. And I've coached some friends along the way who've started podcast studios in physical spaces. And this was years ago, and they're now reaping the benefits of podcasting really becoming a big thing. And so they're doing quite well, honestly. And I don't think that this is going to be a medium that goes away. Part of the reason for that is when you think about, I was having this conversation, John, you'll enjoy this. We were talking about how people use LinkedIn to connect with people
Yeah.
and try and sell them something. LinkedIn is disincentivized to allow that to happen in mass, right? Because they would rather us spend ad dollars to reach those people. That's way more lucrative for them. They're going to find a way to shut that down. Uh, Google and Microsoft, they've shut down cold email outreach effectively. I used to own a firm that's what we did. We used cold email. We did cold email outreach. We would book meetings. It went gangbusters. I sold it at a good time. They've effectively shut it down. The reason why? They make more money off ads on Bing and ads on Google AdWords. They want that money over there. They don't care about your $6 for a Gmail suite. So the thing that's interesting though, John, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, iTunes, they're all incentivized to have more podcasts going, to have more eyeballs coming to that content. They want people to be on the platforms. They want people subscribing for money. They want people to be there. So it's a great opportunity that everyone that's listening should be taking advantage of it. And John, yeah, I love that you're doing that. I think that is just absolutely right.
So I want to, and that's the benefit of this podcast. I had no idea when we started, looked at your bio, and it was very, very interesting, obviously. But I think we have to talk about business at some point. And so I'm going to
Yes.
stay in touch with you, obviously, on what we are doing here is that, being very successful in the podcasting side and saying, where does it go from here as media globally, and saying, now what we're getting to is how do we make that happen and what should we do, advertisement, and how do you do the marketing side of that model, and what does that look like as we go forward. And so after this podcast, and at some point we'll stay in touch, and I'm going to
Sounds great.
ask you to help me in finding direction.
I'd be honored to, John.
So tell us more about you as you then go forward. Now you have balanced your personal life. You have obviously the CEO of a very, very successful company called Finch, as well as you still do independent consulting, I presume. And
Yep.
you found that balance. And how do you see things going forward? And you already touched on it, as you said. The podcasting or social media is changing as we speak for all that reasons. And I found it interesting that you identified the different platforms that we have now, and then focusing on the ones that likely will be successful, like for all the reasons that you said. And maybe tell us a little bit more about that, models like YouTube and other ones that will stimulate podcasting.
Yeah, I think that right right now, if there's that old, I believe it's a Chinese proverb. It says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you could do anything, I'd say go start a podcast 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But the second best thing, start today. Like get it. And I think that one of the things that, John, I'm episode 480 something, I think is what you said, or 60 something. One of the things that I love to tell new podcasters, this is going to tie into the new platforms, by the way, but one of the things that I tell new podcasters is if you record 20 episodes, you're in the top 1% of podcasters. Everybody quits at episode 19. Like if you get to 20, you're in the top 1%. So, and what's crazy to me about that too, John, is that you don't really start to figure out the podcast that you're running until you get to episode 30 at the very least. I often find that there's a huge difference between episode 30 and episode 100. I'm sure that you've experienced this a lot. And so
Absolutely.
the more that It's just like going to the gym, right? The more that you work out these muscles, the stronger you're going to get, the better the podcast is going to do, the more engagement you're going to have. So when we look at channels that are incentivized to amplify our messages, YouTube is one of those, Spotify is one of those, iTunes is one of those. We're going to continue to see TikTok be one of those, because they want eyeballs. And TikTok, just whether you love it or you hate it, use it. I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. I was like, use it. People are there. But the other thing too is, TikTok really changed the conversation for social media in a meaningful way. And what I mean is, their algorithm set up for not how many likes and followers you have. They set up for what's the best content, what's the most compelling content. So what they changed for Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, they fundamentally changed the nature of the game. Instead of rewarding people that had big followings, they're rewarding people that are making the best content. So you could shoot a video for your first video. You could have 0 followers and it could go absolutely viral now. And that's happening on YouTube. That's happening on TikTok. That's happening on Instagram now. You can start to put out content in such a way that you can hit a home run and you will gain a huge following and you will get lots of engagement and go from there. My biggest thing, though, as we move forward, is there are going to be new platforms. I don't know what they are yet. You don't know what they are yet. When a new platform comes out, hop on it. It's the best time to maximize its value because they're trying to attract people. And so if you hop on a new platform, it may not go anywhere, it may go everywhere. But the point is to really engage in those spaces. So now, as we move forward, be thinking about which platforms are going to be incentivized to promote your content and your company.
I love it, Dave. So, have you got a contact point for people watching us that may want to contact you?
Absolutely. So you can reach out to me personally, dave.valentine@finch.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram @RealDval is my handle. And I would tell you to go check out Vox and Coin. We put out 2 to 3 episodes a week right now. And we have a lot of fun. We talk marketing and business exclusively. And you'll get to meet one of my co-owners, Jake. And it's a fun time. We have lots of good conversations. We also talk with entrepreneurs and marketing leaders on a regular basis. So, yep, that's where you can go check me out.
Excellent, Dave. An amazing, amazing podcast. I'm going to stay in touch with you in the next week or two, contact you and about some of the things that we are doing going forward. For all the people watching us, it is so important to encourage us, both Dave and myself, and continuing to podcast the way we are doing it, making it very casual about different topics. Subscribe to us, like it, share it with others, and contact and comment on it. And so, Dave, an amazing podcast. We release our podcast probably later on today. It was in the next 45 hours. We release it as we presented it. We always do that. We get it out of the door very, very quickly.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
David, appreciate the podcast. Let's make sure we stay in touch.
Thanks for having me on, John. Good chatting with you.